Thomas for putting this on. I really got to give a shout out to our volunteers. First one's Annie Lessem. She will be taking your questions. So if you write down a question on the piece of paper you're offered, just hold it up with your hand, and she will pick that up. Barbara Kelly is here. Yuju Wang, Walter Szymanski, Colleen Sawyer. Andrea Warren is the one who works for the chamber and put this on. So everything good. He put grace on her. And a very special thanks to Celeste Landry, who will be taking your questions. She was instrumental in working with us, sorting the questions, making sure there was a good division so all candidates could be heard and have interesting questions to get their point across. So thank you very much. She will be taking the questions and bringing them to me for the second half. So each candidate, we're going to go over the rules again. You've been sent the rules. They shouldn't change, but just for the audience, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement at the beginning and 1 minute for a closing statement at the end. In between, we're going to rotate among different wards and the mayoral race, picking 2 or 3 races, giving each candidate a minute to answer the question asked. Our timer will notify you when you have 15 seconds left. It's on the yellow board there. And then there will be a hard stop at 1 minute. He has that one. And please respect the time so we can get as many questions. With so many candidates here, we want to make sure we get as many questions answered as possible. Because of the so many questions, so many candidates, that's why we're not asking all the same question to everybody. We will ask one question at the beginning of everybody to kick things off, to kind of differentiate yourself after your opening statement. All electronic devices, laptops, smartphones, that will be turned off during the forum, except for our 2 people on Zoom, because of course they will need a laptop or some type of phone to be able to utilize it. But you are not supposed to use it for getting any data or to take any advantage over other candidates that are here. Candidates and their staff will not record the forum. According to FCC policy, I am told, candidate forums must be broadcast in their entirety, except by media reporting on events. Channel 8 is the only authorized TV coverage allowed. Excerpts may not be used in any candidate campaign's website. Candidates may link to the streaming media from their campaign website, but it may not place the video on their website. If a candidate is unable to attend the forum, candidate will be allowed to attend via Zoom. Thank you very much for Mindy Kiachen. Did I pronounce that right, Mindy?
Yes, thank you.
And Grayson Hoffenberg is also here on Zoom, but he will be, I think he's running a couple of minutes late. Or he might be here. Can you tell me if he is? He is logged on, I've heard. Okay.
I am here. I am traveling, and I appreciate the accommodation. So I will do my best.
If the candidate cannot attend in person or via Zoom, he or she can provide a written opening statement, which would be read by the moderator. Substitutes or stand-ins for a candidate are not allowed. If you were not picked to answer a question that you feel very strongly about, then feel free to use part of your minute for the next question to answer briefly, as in regarding issue X, I wholeheartedly agree with the decision of candidate Y, or explain in more detail. But please remember that the voters out there also expect you to answer the specific question of that round. Our timers will cut you off when your time is up. I forgot to bring my hair. Campaign literature is permitted only on designated tables and only allowed by current election law. And I forgot to check because ballots have already dropped if they could be brought in here because of the limit. So hopefully nobody's violating campaign finance laws or campaigning laws. Okay, so we're going to start out with the opening statement. The opening statement, we're going to go in an order, which I will read out each person, and then the closing statements will go in the exact opposite order. So we will start out with first opening statement in the order that you're sitting at the dais. Candidate Broom, can you please give us your opening statement?
Certainly, thank you. Thank you everybody for being here and for watching, and it's a special thank you to the Broomfield Chamber of Commerce for hosting this. A little bit about myself. I have lived in Broomfield since kindergarten, raised here, and went through the school systems. I decided right after college that this is where I wanted to establish my life. Much to my parents' chagrins, who's here tonight, they went, "Oh goodness, she's never going to move away from home," and I haven't. I started my first career out at Rocky Flats. It's where I got my first master's degree, and I've been in 4 industries since then. Over 25 years of experience and leadership experience in program management and progressive roles in corporate America. I've been in environmental remediation, information management, aerospace and defense, and my current is the food and beverage industry. I have 2 master's degrees and several leadership certifications. I can't forget my 2 sons that I'm very proud of, 21 and 23, and they're off and onto their own careers by now. The last 4 years, the council has not only been an honor, but an amazing learning experience for me and personal growth. I've been on 9 different boards and commissions, both local and regional. I have the background, the education, the leadership, the experience, and Broomfield knowledge to take this leadership role as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up will be candidate Castriata. Your 2-minute opening.
Easier to breathe. Thank you to the Broomfield Chamber and the League of Women Voters for organizing the forum for us tonight. I'm Broomfield Mayor Eileen Castriata, and my campaign for mayor is about protecting our ability to determine our own future. It's about prioritizing health and safety and economic security for all who call Broomfield home. To me, the role of mayor is to facilitate the council's agenda and priorities, which are predominantly guided by your input. It also helps that I've earned the support of most of my fellow council colleagues and public officials across the Front Range. I believe in regional collaboration to help us navigate our shared challenges as we emerge from the pandemic. When I was unanimously appointed to Mayor Pro Tem in 2019, and then most recently to interim mayor, it was because I've cultivated those relationships with City Council. Having had the opportunity to work side by side with Mayor Quinn and our city and county management throughout the public health crisis, I feel most qualified to ensure a seamless transition, as I've demonstrated since being appointed to interim mayor in June. I am ready and best equipped to continue as your mayor because I've put in the time to learn the job and have consistently shown up to honor my commitments to the residents of Broomfield. Over the past 4 years, I've forged strong relationships with my council colleagues, staff, and elected officials in neighboring communities. The level of engagement from our residents has never been higher, and Broomfield deserves a responsive, compassionate mayor. A mayor who is willing to step up to fill a need in the times that we've been facing. I may not have grown up here, but since my family chose to live here in 2013, my heart has never stopped beating for Broomfield. I think my record of advocacy for our residents demonstrates that commitment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I did make 2 minor errors. I forgot to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Sam Taylor. I'm the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. And we are very thankful to be able to host this forum. Also, we did just hear from the 2 candidates for mayor. Now we're going to move on to the candidates for Ward 1. First will be candidate Mark Olshan.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you for everyone for coming, and thank you for the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event. I want to thank all of my friends and neighbors who have supported me throughout this campaign, and especially my family, especially my wonderful wife, Alexis, who has taken on more than her share of family, household, taking care of our 6-year-old and our very active 2-year-old while I've been out campaigning. I could not do it without her. My name is James Mark Olshan. I grew up in Spokane, Washington, where I obtained bachelor's degrees in political science and economics from Eastern Washington University before moving to DC and going to Georgetown University, where I obtained my law degree in 2013. It was during my time in DC when I actually met my wife, Alexis, who was out there working for the National Education Association. We moved here in 2013 after I graduated, and we actually have purchased the home that she grew up in Brandywine. She grew up growing in Mountain View Elementary School, Westlake Middle School, Legacy High School. In fact, there are still teachers there that she had as a student. Since moving here, I have worked the last 6 years in financial compliance, working as an anti-money laundering analyst for a financial firm in Denver. Was downtown, now it is fully remote. I have volunteered with the Longmont Community Justice Partnership, doing restorative justice work with minors. I volunteered with Adams 12 School District, and I've also been involved in both the Broomfield Health and Human Services Advisory Committee and currently on the local licensing authority. When we moved here in 2013, I fell in love with this community. I fell in love with the inclusiveness and the neighboring and the neighbors, and that was fast. So I am running because I want to build a inclusive and sustainable future for everyone in Broomfield and tackle the issues that we have, such as affordable housing and traffic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from candidate Hammerschmidt.
So my name is Chris Hammerschmidt. I've lived in Broomfield for 24 years. I've raised 3 boys here. I have a 37-year-old who has 2 children. One's 8 and one's 2. I have 2 twin boys. I attended the Colorado School of Mines and CU Boulder. I received my bachelor's degree in physics and my master's degree in electrical engineering. I worked at the National Institute of Standards and Technology in Boulder, Colorado for 20 years as a metrologist, and I'm currently working for the Institute for Telecommunication Sciences, and I've been there for almost 12 years. I am running because I'm concerned at the recent upsurge in property crimes. The cost of housing here in Boulder, which was affordable when I moved here because I couldn't live in Boulder, and the rapid increase in property taxes over the last few years. So when elected to office, I will work with the police department and local communities in Ward 1 to reintroduce neighborhood watches and restore neighborhood patrols. I'll work with the Housing Coalition and city staff to study affordable housing solutions. I'm a tax-paying citizen just like you, and I know how to spend my money better than the city. I want to keep money in your pocket. I was the registered agent last year for the Vote No on 2B because I knew that during the pandemic, people were having a really hard time. I know I was. I was trapped in my basement with my job, and isolation is just not good in a measurement environment. So I'm looking out for the Broomfield taxpayer, and I thank you very much, and I thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to Ward 2 candidates. Candidate Ward.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Austin Ward. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event. It's wonderful to see you all here in person. I've lived in Broomfield for 3 years now, and I graduated from the University of Boulder, or the University of Colorado Boulder, with a bachelor's degree in economics and business minor. My campaign is focused on addressing the affordability issue within Broomfield, as well as our transportation and sustainability issues as climate change continues to ravage our planet. As a council member for Ward 2, I will work with the Housing Committee to try and address affordability issues such as just building enough homes, making sure we have a variety of homes to fit all the needs of Broomfield, from those who are renters to first-time home buyers and our senior citizens. My background currently is I'm an RTD bus operator. I have been for the past 5 years now, working on trying to get a master's degree in environmental sustainability at CU. So I think I am best equipped to handle this because I bring a unique perspective as a 25-year-old to Broomfield. I would be the youngest member on council. And we need more people who are of my age on council representing us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, candidate Coleman.
Thanks, Al. Brett Holtman, thank you all for being here. Thanks to the chamber and the room owners and of course the city. The reason that I decided to run is I'm primarily concerned about three things that I see changing in a way that is worrisome. First is safety, then affordability, and then just generally quality of life. And safety obviously is about the frightening increase in property crime. And right from the start of my campaign, I would say, you know, inevitably property crime leads to violent crime. And we just can't let that go. Chris made a good point. Community policing is important. We need to support our police in the neighborhoods. We also need engagement from the community for community watch. In addition to why I ran, let me just give you a little background on myself. Respective to the criminal issue, I was the president of a program in Boulder that served Boulder, Broomfield, and Longmont called Focused Reentry. And it's a program that mentors people so they don't go back to jail. They find a new path in life. And those kinds of practical common sense solutions are what I think we all need to focus on. And I intend to bring that to the city council. Affordability, I'm very concerned about the fact that we're on a trajectory where we could end up squeezing out our middle class, working class, and senior residents. And that's just not fair. And then finally, quality of life can look like little things like somebody who needs a new sidewalk in front of their house, somebody who is dealing with issues that they're not even aware of because we're buying water that's leaking out under part of our ward. And you know, how long can we buy water to put back in the ground? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we're moving on to Ward 3. Candidate Piotr let us know that he would not be here tonight and he did not provide an opening statement. So we will move on to candidate Schaff.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you for holding this forum. My name is Devin Schaff, and I'm your Ward 3 council member serving the city and county of Broomfield. Something pretty amazing happened yesterday. Captain Kirk finally went into space. Now, since I was a kid, I've always been captivated by space, the final frontier, to go boldly where no one has gone before. Just years before those famous words were spoken by William Shatner, the US made a real-life bold step to go to the moon. Moonshots. The power of a nation to rally around a common goal, to make a big step, to use our resources and time to achieve goals that are big, bold, patriotic, and larger than any one person. In Broomfield, we are no stranger to big, bold actions. In 1990, Broomfield would completely overhaul our water system after the FBI raid of Rocky Flats nuclear weapons plant. We eventually broke ground just this year on the Chimney Hollow Reservoir as part of that new water system. In the 1990s, a group of Broomfield residents would create a constitutional amendment that would pass and create Colorado's 64th county. Earlier this year, council would pass an inclusionary housing ordinance. We would pass greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals. We would pass the most comprehensive oil and gas regulations, including the 2,000-foot setback prohibiting oil and gas activity near homes, schools, and recreation areas. This community would respond to a pandemic with amazing support for our businesses, our families, our schools, and each other. Each of these examples show the past successes and illustrate the awesome potential for our future. As we come out of the pandemic, let us not forget the bond that we formed. Let us not lose sight of the work we have ahead of us. I am all in on this community, and I am honored and privileged to serve as your representative on the Broomfield City Council. I am Devin Schaff, and I am running for re-election to create a thriving Broomfield. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move on to the Ward 4 candidates now. First will be candidate Leslie.
Thank you, and I really appreciate the chamber holding this. My name is Bruce Leslie, the candidate for Ward 4. I have been married to Cheryl Leslie for 52 years. Cheryl and I raised 3 kids. We've been the soccer coaches and softball coaches over their careers. Our daughter moved here years ago, and we have 2 grandchildren here that are attending CU and another one in the Boulder Valley School District, and we have 8 grandkids altogether. Our dream is that all of those kids will want to move here to Broomfield and find the same beautiful place that we have found, the kind of environment and the wonderful talent that exists here in Broomfield, and want to raise their families here and find their careers here, and that they will see the same vision for Broomfield that we have in the years ahead of us. After I left the Navy, I became a community college president, and I led for 40 years large, politically complex urban community college systems, including the state system of Connecticut as well. So during those years, I've learned a lot about leadership. In fact, I teach legislative theory, and I teach leadership now for 2 universities that I do consulting for business and industry. So I'm also a small business owner, as well as somebody who has served in large organizations. I had a $1 billion budget, 6,000 employees, 100,000 students. So I've learned a lot about that. Because I've worked all over the country, I can bring another talent to this talented board of the city council. I have experiences not only nationally, but internationally, and I think I can add something to the talent that already exists here to make Broomfield the kind of place we want to continue it to be. So I'm blessed to have this opportunity to run. I'm retired, I have the time. I've done so many things in leadership over my career that I can bring those skills to the chamber, to the city council. And I've served on chambers of commerce boards all over the country, manufacturing associations, public organizations. So I do understand the public environment, and I'm looking forward to serving you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the candidates who are here on Zoom. We will start with candidate Kiachen. You muted at the moment. We'll start you over any timer.
Sorry about that. Hello, Broomfield. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Mindy Kiachen, running for Ward 4. I've been a Broomfield resident for 20 years. I live in Anthem Highlands, and my parents live in Anthem Ranch. I grew up in a small rural farming town in Southern Illinois in a middle-class family. My dad was a small business owner, and my mom a first-grade teacher at a military base. I have always been involved in my community and advocating to help others. Some of my earliest memories of this are adopting a needy family at Christmas and volunteering with food drives. When I attended Texas Christian University, I worked at an inner city school teaching kids to read. When I was Miss Metro East and running for Miss Illinois, I worked with the VH1 Save the Music in Schools campaign and started an after-school dance program at an inner city school near East St. Louis, Illinois. I am a former ballet dancer and have performed in 42nd Street at the St. Louis Muni Opera, among many other opportunities. After graduating from Southern Illinois University, I went on to pursue a career in hospitality, for many years working in the hotel industry, which led me to meeting my husband while employed at the Boulder Marriott Hotel. Years later, we are now small business owners owning 2 successful UPS stores for 8 years, and we have 3 children ages 18, 11, and 4. I care deeply about our community, and I love Broomfield. Broomfield is one of the best cities in the country to live and raise a family. It is evident by how much growth there has been in the most recent years. I am committed to and invested in our community and will address the needs of residents and local businesses. My top priorities include community safety, economic vitality, and smart growth. As a mother, small business owner, and member of the Broomfield Housing Advisory Committee, I am confident that I can address these issues and get it done for residents of Ward 4 and the entire community. I believe in our residents, and I believe in our local businesses. I believe in Broomfield. As Ward 4 representative, I will be passionately committed to serving our community, listening to and taking action on resident concerns, and putting Broomfield first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you're able to see that, but we have to hold up the time behind there because of the single camera. So thank you for having a good time of speech. If you didn't see that.
I can't, it's extremely small. I can only see kind of little dots of people.
Gotcha. Well, you should see a big red square or yellow square for the 15 seconds. Candidate Hoffenberg, You're going to be up next, so you should be listening.
I can see a red dot, so I'll focus on that. Sorry.
Gotcha. Well, as long as you can see something, hopefully candidate Hoffenberg will see it. We are going now to Ward 5, and we're going to stay on the Zoom call with candidate Hoffenberg.
Well, good evening, and thank you, Sam and the Chamber of Commerce, and thank you, Boulder County League of Women Voters. Greatly appreciate you putting this forum on, and I greatly appreciate the accommodations of offering this virtually as we are traveling to upstate New York, where my wife is from, to visit family. It's the first time bringing our children up here, and the first time in 5 years since we've last visited. So I greatly appreciate, like I say, the accommodations. I'm Grayson Hoffenberg. I am running for City Council here in Ward 5, and I'm excited to get to work for the people of Broomfield. I am not a politician by no means. I am a community servant, however, as I have served on multiple boards and commissions here within the city and county of Broomfield. I served as the chairman of the Broomfield Chamber of Commerce, twice elected as the chairman there. My term ended at the end of 2020. So definitely familiar with taking an organization that has a fiduciary responsibility to its membership to make sure that you are headed down the right path. When I first took over in that organization, it was a pretty dire outlook, and worked with staff there over the years to make sure that we offered a membership to our small business community that not only provided them the opportunities to grow their business and grow personally, but to also provide the support through a very difficult time through a recession and a pandemic. And so very proud of the work we've done there and the change we've seen over time. Again, Grayson Hoffenberg, I'm a father, a husband, and a small business owner. And so for me, I'm very much vested in this community and looking forward to raising my children for the years to come. I operate a small business here as a registered investment advisor. And so I hope to bring my economic know-how and my ability to help people reach financial goals to the city council. There's three main.
Thank you very much. Oh, you didn't see the red dot, I take it.
It's so hard to see.
Thank you, I appreciate it. We'll try and wave it a little bit for your next question and see if you can see it. Thank you. And for our last opening statement will be candidate Cohen.
Thank you to everybody for attending the forum tonight. My name is Todd Cohen. I am a city council member for Ward 5 as of July. So I am still on my probationary period and hoping to get a good review on November 2nd to continue in this position. Let me first start with a quick summary of who I am. My wife and I and our kids moved to Broomfield about 8 years ago, attracted to Broomfield's open spaces, to its great schools, and of course, what was then more affordable homes for this community. My day job is Associate Vice President of Marketing Communications for Regis University in Denver. I have previously was the Marketing Communications Director for the University of Kansas, which is similar size and scope to CU. And I also did communications and outreach work for Great Outdoors Colorado, which is a state agency that takes the money you lose playing the lottery and reinvests it in land conservation and outdoor recreation. I have a master's in public administration, University of Washington. I also have degrees in journalism and political science. I did use that degree to get elected to council twice in Kansas when I lived there. Since moving to Broomfield, I've served 5 years on the Open Space Trails and Advisory Committee until being appointed to council. I'm running to council because I want to help ensure that Broomfield remains that our common home remains the great place to live and learn, work, and play that it is today. So my aspirations are in serving council is that every Broomfielder has a safe home in a safe neighborhood, a healthy home where they can live and breathe without fear of what's in the air or in the ground, a affordable home that way you can live in and breathe easily with security, and a sustainable home. We must do our part to reduce our carbon imprint and never have the summer like we just had. And finally, it's very important to me that every Broomfielder's home is within a 10-minute walk of an open space park or trail. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Well, thank you all candidates. Did a great job. Barely had to let anybody know your time is over except for the problem with being able to see things on Zoom. So appreciate this very much. The next question, as we look through the questions and our third-party consultant was looking at it, we decided this next question should go to all candidates. It will be the only question that goes to all the candidates. And we are going to start right in the middle to switch things up a little bit. All of these questions will be switched up. So we are going to start with candidate Schaaf. And the question is, if elected, what will be your top 3 priorities?
Great, thanks for the question. So I think that, the top 3 priorities is, as we continue to hear that Broomfield is increasingly becoming more unaffordable for folks. The big part of that is the lack of diverse housing that exists within Broomfield, but also the price point that exists within Broomfield as well. During the last 4 years, we have continued to establish more housing stock, as well as to create deep restricted housing. The next piece I definitely would say is going to be sustainability, and we have made actions towards that. We have created the greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals, but we have metrics and measurements to establish that for the long term. And the last one is probably the most pressing, which is the recovery from our pandemic at this point. We have to support our small businesses as they continue to open up. We have to support our schools as they continue to keep in-person learning happening. And we have to support our community. And that is going to be a major task in the coming days. So thank you. Those are my 3.
Thank you. Next, with the same question, we'll move to the Zoom and ask candidate Kiachen, what will be your 3 top priorities if elected?
Hi, my top 3 priorities are community service and safety, economic recovery and support, and also smart growth. Regarding community safety and our community service, that addresses many issues regarding our homelessness, our public safety, and also even including our transportation issues. For our economy, I want to focus on supporting our businesses that have survived the pandemic, but also encouraging new growth and those existing businesses to thrive and be supported even more in the community. And then, of course, smart growth with our affordable housing and our infrastructure. I really believe that our economy and our affordable housing kind of go hand in hand. And I have a lot of confidence that I can address those issues.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.
I think I saw a red, I thought I saw a red dot. I just want to check.
You saw a yellow one.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So you did still have 15 seconds, but.
Okay, I was trying to talk quickly. Thank you.
But thank you for keeping an eye on it. I really appreciate that. Next with the same question is candidate Cohen. Would you like me to repeat it?
I think I remember it. I may start to sound repetitive, but obviously affordable housing is a very demanding issue we need to address rather boldly. Devin already mentioned some of the things the council has already done. One of my concerns I'll add to the issue is the missing middle. The inclusive development ordinance that we have now requires developers to carve out homes for the people with the 60 and 80 AMI, people earning 60,000, 80,000. We are missing a lot of housing for the people at 100 AMI. So homes that are in the 350,000 range are extremely hard to find. And those are sort of the starter homes of this day for young families to come and lay down roots. Again, economic recovery is a key issue. We have to replace the lost revenue from the pandemic, notably the loss of revenue from flat irons as it's going to redevelopment. And I will just make it official. Dear to my heart is open space. We have a 40% goal. We're at 35%. We need to conserve that land before it's too late and before we're fully built out.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll go back to the Zoom screen. Candidate Hoffenberg, you're up.
Hi, so yeah, 3 main topics of concern. Affordable housing is one you're going to hear throughout the evening, public safety, and smart development and financial responsibility. I'll first address affordable housing, and I am the only candidate in Ward 5 to be endorsed both by the Home Builders Association as well as the Apartment Association of Metro Denver. I understand the economics and the mechanisms behind affordable housing to get it done. We've been talking about this for too many years for us to continue to be talking about it. I'll put into action real activity to get affordable housing brought to the forefront. Public safety. We've seen property crimes up over 60%. And that has led to more aggressive and more violent crime in our community. It cannot happen any longer. As a financial planner, I will be responsible with our close to $500 million budget we oversee here in the CCOB. I look forward to earning your vote and focusing on these three topics.
Thank you very much. And I apologize, I've made my first error of the questioning. Fortunately, we have a great staff over here who reminded me that I accidentally skipped candidate Leslie. I apologize for that. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, sir, and I appreciate the opportunity. My three elements are: number one, vision. I mentioned earlier my vision that Broomfield remain a place where our grandchildren and frankly their children would like to live and work and raise their families. Second is I have learned so much about the talent in Broomfield as I canvassed all of Ward 4, but seeing it in all the other neighborhoods as well. I've always been a collaborator, and so my goal is to bring all those folks under the tent because that talent can help us solve our problems. We can't do it by ourselves. And third is quality of life. Certainly, along with my colleagues here, making sure that we protect and maintain the environment here, that we resolve transportation issues that are particularly on the north side of the ward being affected by the growth on Route 7, and water issues are going to continue to be prominent for us here in Colorado. So those issues are going to be paramount in my service to you, and obviously I'm looking forward to your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be candidate Castriata.
Like being on a game show. Well, absolutely the top priority for any county commissioner or city council should be public health and safety. That is our first responsibility to the citizens. And I'm really proud of what we've accomplished. 3 years ago, we voted to increase funding for our police force, which had not kept up with the huge population growth. And since then, we've added 20 officers, 10 per year, mainly because that's the maximum that can be trained at one time. It takes a lot to onboard our police. So, and we've added 6 more for this year. So I'm really proud of that because we have grown so much. And then on the public health side, our handling of the pandemic, our community came together. We have a very high rate of vaccination. Housing is definitely a priority for us. And as you heard from my colleagues, and sustainability, because if we don't work to keep our air and water clean, no place will be livable. So we have to keep those priorities on track. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Groom.
Thank you. I have to say there's a lot of council priorities and it's hard to pick 3. So I'll say I definitely support the current priorities and moving forward. We've worked really hard on making sure that Broomfield focuses on those things. But my 3 that I want to bring some light on is business recovery. So I've been out talking to local businesses, asking them one main question, which is how do you go from red to black on your financial statements, and working with them to figure out what is the right policies in moving forward. The second one is to ensure that we stabilize our large developments here in Broomfield. They're huge, large developments that will add to our population and shape our next 20 years for Broomfield. And then also we've got to make sure that we ensure a sustainable financial future. And our build out of our 34 square miles is balanced and secure. And that is what will help affordable housing the most. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, candidate Hammerschmidt.
Thank you for the question. You heard about my issue about safety. The shooting that happened at Walgreens was right behind my home. Talk about concerning. I was driving out and I saw the 2 police officers with the police dog looking in the pond area. And I was really concerned because when that happens, you don't know if there is somebody out on the loose, and that concerns me. And so I want to work with our police department because I think that is a big priority. Also affordable housing. I was talking to a senior. She was living in the basement of a home. We really lack senior housing that's affordable. and all the other housing that's really important. And then I want to lower property taxes. I think that's really important. We have more homes, we have more people paying taxes, and I want to understand if the city could support a lowering of the property taxes. I think it's important that you get the money back. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Candidate Marshall, you're up next.
So my top three priorities are residential traffic safety, economic recovery, and of course, affordable housing. You know, what I've knocked over 5,000 doors in the last several months in Ward 1, and the number one issue people talk about is their residential traffic. I first decided to run way back in 2013 when I contacted our then council members about the high rates of speed that people drove down 124th Avenue right by our house in the park, and was basically blown off by the then council member. So that's a very important thing to me, that we reimagine what our residential traffic safety looks like. Economic recovery, obviously the pandemic has brought chaos on our economics, and you know, the dry cleaning place that I took my dry cleaning to has closed, and I want to make sure that our small businesses are able to recover and or reimagine what it looks like after the pandemic. And of course, affordable housing. I'm proud of the work this current council has done on affordable housing, from the vouchers for our unhoused individuals, the Independent Housing Authority, and the exclusive housing ordinance. I'd also like to look forward and maybe look at a local homestead exemption that's means tested. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from candidate Hoffman.
The first one would be safety, to work with the new police chief and the excellent police force that we have in Broomfield, because they know what needs to be done, and we need to empower them to get the job done and support them in that. In addition to that, my profession is I work with small businesses to help them accelerate their revenue. So helping the businesses, as Mayor O'Cannon Groom said, to get to the black. I understand that process, and it's essential. Along with that, it's just the wise engagement and good stewardship of this really finite resource, the 33.6, as the city staff advised us, square miles it is Broomfield. That's a cherished, precious resource that we have to really be smart about how we utilize, and that's going to have a huge impact on affordability and all the other quality of life issues in Broomfield going forward.
Thank you. And finally, we'll hear from candidate Ward.
Thank you. My top three priorities are addressing the affordability housing issue, transportation, and sustainability. We lack a variety of housing in Broomfield for our renters, our first-time home buyers, and especially our senior citizens who are continually being priced out. I know one of my neighbors, their rent was hiked $700 per month, and they had to move back to Illinois with their family because they could no longer afford it. We do lack, as I said earlier, affordable senior housing. I think we're short a couple thousand or so units. In regards to transportation, I want to see expanded access to public transportation, more protected bike lanes, multimodal paths for people to walk safely. And with regards to sustainability, I want to see us expedite our transition to all electric vehicles, increasing public charging infrastructure, and relying on more renewable energy sources to power our homes and businesses.
Thank you all for your answers. I appreciate that. Next, we are going to turn to leadership. And this is where we'll just be asking a few of the various wards races questions, just so we can get more questions in today. This first question is, describe the type of leadership needed to be an effective council member or mayor. Give a specific Broomfield example from the past of this leadership quality, and or tell us what makes you a good leader. And we are going to start out with candidate Castriata. I can repeat these for any of you because it was rather long.
Well, it's about leadership. And
an example.
well, I believe the most important quality to be a successful mayor is having good working relationships with our city council and our regional elected officials. You need to work together in order to solve problems and come to consensus. And I think I've demonstrated my ability to do that. by having the confidence of our current city council to step in as interim mayor, and before that as mayor pro tem. I am supported and endorsed by all of our local elected officials and regional partners because I have cultivated those relationships. I have gone to the meetings, I have shown up, and I think that's the most important quality, is getting people to come together so that we can find agreement and move Broomfield forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Groom, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
I thought you might. Anybody else can when I get to them. Describe the type of leadership needed to be an effective council member or mayor in your case. Give a specific Broomfield example from the past of this leadership quality, and or tell us what makes you a good leader.
Perfect, thank you. Well, I think the type of leadership needed is rapport leadership, building relationships. And this should not only be owned by elected officials, but also fostered with staff. Staff will hold the rapport leadership over time as elected officials come and go. I think power and endorsement leadership will not last the stand of time. Where I have had examples in Broomfield in leading in my work, 25 years worth of work, is building rapport, building relationships that last time. And that would be my strength coming into this role, is bringing that type of leadership, building trust, and ensuring that what the programs we implement for Broomfield are for Broomfield and not necessarily another city that is implemented it successfully. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from candidate Ward. Would you like me to repeat this?
Sure.
Describe the type of leadership needed to be an effective council member. Give a specific Broomfield example from the past of this leadership quality, and or tell us what makes you a good leader.
Thank you. So I think one of the qualities of a good leader is their ability to listen, to understand what their residents need. And then another good quality is being able to collaborate not only with staff and current council, or with the council members, but also regionally. We're not going to be able to solve our problems that Broomfield has unless we address those issues at a more regional and statewide level. Unfortunately, I don't have a specific Broomfield example because I'm still fairly new, but when I graduated from CU Boulder, I worked to start my own bus company to run scheduled service between Denver and Estes Park. And as part of that, I had to go out and listen to community members and get their support, and then work with city officials at Estes Park and Denver, CDOT, et cetera, to try and get them on board and get the proper permits.
Thank you. Candidate Holtman, describe the type of leadership needed to be an effective council member. Give a specific Broomfield example from the past of this leadership quality, and or tell us what makes you.
It requires listening first and responding rather than telling and reacting. And I love the question because I actually have a book published called Engage, How to Attract and Inspire High Performance Teams. And so I think that is a bona fide for me as far as leadership capability. I coach small business people on how to lead. And an example for Broomfield, I think the fact that this city has become a great place because it was planned, a group of people engaged together and intentionally figured out what makes sense for the majority of the folks here, and built a great town. And then built a great county in addition to having a great town.
Thank you very much. Next, candidate Leslie, would you like me to repeat this?
No, thank you very much. I'm a strong advocate for what's called collaborative leadership. In fact, I teach leadership for 2 universities, and I do consulting for boards of trustees and college presidents and others. We developed a program when I was in my last role called A Leader in Every Chair, where we ensured that every member of our college family, 6,000 employees and 100,000 students, learn a specific leadership model so that we all could take responsibility for the furtherance of the institution. My Boulder example really, it comes out of my role as a member of the board and treasurer of what's called the Rocky Mountain Performance Excellence Board. This is a regional board that serves Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and Kansas in helping organizations become world class. And my whole philosophy behind all that is to bring diverse voices under the tent so we can solve problems by bringing often the most unexpected solutions to a problem because we're listening to all voices. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we have the same question for candidate Kiachen. Would you like me to repeat this?
Sure.
Okay. Describe the type of leadership needed to be an effective council member. Give a specific Broomfield example from the past of this leadership quality and/or tell us what makes you a good leader.
Well, my number one priority as council member would be to be a public servant and to not have a self-serving agenda. We need a leader who shares in fiscal responsibility, a leader that has respect of the community, a leader who understands that serving city council is working for and serving the people of the community, a leader that is invested in the future of families, and that leader is me. I have juggled running 2 small businesses, raising a family, volunteering in the community, all successfully. I have 3 kids that span 2 decades, and I understand what Broomfield families need, as well as I have retired parents in our community. And I am here to be a voice for and engaged with residents.
Excellent, thank you. One thing we did hear in a lot of these responses is a leader needs to listen. So the next question will be similar and in that vein. And it will start out with candidate Hammerschmidt. Describe how you plan to communicate effectively, if elected, with other council members, city staff, constituents, speakers at council meetings, and peers in other cities and counties.
Wow, that's a lot of people. So I love the fact that I could go out and I could actually talk to these people and understand their needs and their priorities, and then bring that back to city council and incorporate what I've learned, not only with the community through email or, you know, text messages, however you do that best, but just have a relationship with the community. They know that they can come to me and I will give them the information that they require or they would like. I guess, you know, that's kind of what I would do. I'm excited about learning more about this position and how to reach out to small businesses and my constituents a little bit more. I really want to hear from them a lot because I think it's important for our community.
Thank you. Next in the same ward, we will go to Marsh Holston. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
So it's a lot of people. Describe how you plan to communicate effectively if elected with other council members, city staff, constituents, speakers at council meetings, and peers in other cities and counties.
So as Mayor Castriata mentioned a little while ago, communication is about relationships and building common ground with everybody. You know, there's never an issue where we're all going to agree on any topic. And what one person agrees with me on something, somebody else is going to disagree with me. And it's about building those relationships and really truly listening to what's being said and understanding where they're coming from and trying to work together to find a common ground on any particular issue. It also starts with the basic humanity of every person. You know, every person in Broomfield has worth and basic humanity, and we should never, ever deny that or make statements that dehumanize people. And I think that's important in looking towards working with our members of our community. I met a gentleman just the other day on the doors who is an opposite political party for me, and I have his vote because I took the time to listen to him and to understand where he's coming from and his needs. And I think that's the direction that I want to bring to this position. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from candidate Schaff. Describe how you plan to communicate effectively if elected with other council members, city staff, constituents, speakers at council meetings, and peers in other cities and counties.
Thank you. So as a council member, I consider myself responsive, inclusive, I've been willing to engage with my community on every issue. At the dais, when I'm up here during council meeting, I write down every name and everything that someone says during public comments. I communicate effectively and build coalitions. And one of those ways is 4 years ago, just after I was elected, I sat down with former council member Mike Shelton, and we discussed an idea of ranked choice voting. We continue to build that momentum forward. We talk to different stakeholders in our community, different members of council, and 4 years later, unanimously, we passed that as a council and put that forward onto the ballot for this election. So it's continuing to build those relationships, and those relationships are so important. And the only way to build those relationships is through effective communication. Thank you, Sam.
And since communication is so important to the mayor, we asked the mayoral candidates the same thing. We'll start with candidate Castriata. Describe how you plan to communicate effectively, if elected, with other council members, city staff, constituents, speakers at council meetings, and peers in other cities and counties.
With everybody.
Pretty much.
Well, one of the things that really has helped this past council, our current council, get so much done is being able to be responsive and nimble and flexible. We held so many extra meetings during the pandemic as the Board of Health and as things would arise. It was important for the mayor and I, as Mayor Pro Tem, to be accessible to staff, to be able to make quicker decisions, to be quicker with implementing public health orders. And I'm very privileged to be able to have the time to be accessible, to be responsive, because would be my priority as mayor. I work part-time, so I think accessibility is being responsive and returning phone calls and returning emails and showing up when you're supposed to be there and honoring the commitments that we make when we run for these roles. So thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Crew.
All right. Communicating effectively to me is communicating with integrity and honesty at all times, even when people aren't listening, that you wouldn't want to hear what you're saying. And for me, that's what I built my career on. That's what I built this community and staying in this community on, is at all times in every organization I've been in, from crosswalk duty to coach, to putting on football dinners, to working, and even being on council. It's about integrity. And answering emails and phone calls is essential. I agree. But really making sure that we're all talking and listening to each other, and not just ignoring the opposition, because you can and you don't have to listen to them. So again, integrity and honesty is key for being a council member.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to pivot to another subject that has been in the news quite a bit over the last year and a half, or maybe even 2 years. It's the perception of law enforcement. So we're going to start out with candidate Cohen. How can Broomfield ensure that law enforcement's personnel are prepared to deal appropriately with individuals who have disabilities, may not speak English, and or have mental health issues?
Thank you, Sam. Obviously, that I think the only answer to that is to, as the previous question was, to listen and training. I think the police do a fantastic job, but often, and my own father-in-law was a police officer and a homicide detective. It's a tough job, and you sometimes can start to forget there are good people out there because you deal with the bad ones so often. So I do think it's important that we give police the space to communicate how they're feeling, to also receive the training from people about these different kind of folks who they might encounter. And also, I think the city has done a great job of creating a co-policing program to pair them, officers with social workers, so they have people with them to help them de-escalate situations and avoid any bad outcome.
Thank you very much. Candidate Hoffenberg, I will repeat the question. How can Broomfield ensure that law enforcement personnel are prepared to deal appropriately with individuals who have disabilities, may not speak English, and or have mental health issues?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think the biggest thing is understanding that our police have an incredibly difficult job as it is. The last couple of years has proven to put even more pressure upon how police engage with citizens. And so what this comes down to is approachability and accessibility. We've got to provide the resources and the tools for our police enforcement or our police force to be able to engage our citizenry, regardless of challenges, whether it's language or disability or otherwise. So part of that looks like having the tools available, whether that's ADA or translation, but also just being approachable, having community events and allowing our citizens the opportunity to make contact with our police and know that they're a resource and serving our community, and that they're not to be feared or to be looked at as unapproachable.
We'll ask the same question of candidate Leslie. Would you like me to repeat it?
No, thank you very much. I appreciate the question. In my career, I've worked closely with police and firefighters. In fact, I probably shouldn't admit this tonight, but I used to play bagpipes in a band of police and firefighters, so I got to know them on an intimate basis. Over the years, my colleges provided the police academies and firefighter academies. We provided programs in the prisons in our various areas. So I've been very close to that, even leading a police force at my last college. That was an award-winning force. The issues really are solved by leadership, by empathy of the leaders and of the men and women in the force, and training. One of the things that Chief Prager said to me when I met with him recently is that one of the things he's most proud of is that no one has touched his training budget, that we all have recognized here how important that budget is, and it should be maintained. So leadership, training, and hiring empathetic individuals is key. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Kiachen, would you like me to repeat it? You're still on mute.
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure. How can Broomfield ensure that law enforcement personnel are prepared to deal appropriately with individuals who have disabilities, may not speak English, and or have mental health issues?
Thank you. I really appreciate this question, because for me, I see a need to increase our mental health support and also for our disabled in the community. And that's actually one of my commitments within my campaign, that regarding mental health, I want to serve the whole person, increasing our resources in Broomfield. And also for our disabled community, I see a need to increase our resources to not only work in collaboration with other organizations, whether it be the police department or affordable housing, or within our schools, or whatever it may be. I'm an all of the above candidate, in which I believe that we need to explore all options that would be necessary to make our community better, bring us closer together and thriving. And for me, I want to work on bringing everybody together, whether it be not dividing us based on our churches, schools, disabilities, who we are, whatever it may be. I want to be that candidate that works on bringing people together.
Thank you very much. We will ask the mayoral candidates the same question. We'll start with candidate Castriata. Would you like me to repeat this one?
Sure, I'll go first again.
Did I go?
It's always me, yeah.
Oh, you know what? No, not always, but you're right. I did this backwards. I apologize. It is supposed to be room. I had to move some things around when I found out we'd be missing one of the candidates to try and get things. So I apologize for that. It should be candidate room.
Oh, okay.
Now, after that monologue on my part, would you like me to repeat that?
I think I got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So yeah, Broomfield's law enforcement is award-winning. They're amazing. We would never touch that training budget, because that's what they're known for. They're out there not only in Broomfield, but they're also training other organizations to establish the same culture and training that we have here. So we need to handle all with care and respect and empathy. But for those individuals that you listed, we do have a team that can support the police officers as they go in for these calls. A lot of times when they're called, they already know the situation at hand. And so we can call in a special team that will really respond with the skill sets and the tools needed to support the need of the individual. And that's what I would suggest for law enforcement, but I have to say they know way better than I do how to handle those situations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, candidate Castriata, I shall ask you the question.
Thank you. Well, we are so fortunate to live in a place where we have one of the best police departments ever. I mean, our police are amazing and they keep us safe and we make sure that they have the resources that they need. And we have had the mental health co-responder program in place for about 2 years. It's been so successful that Adams County is adopting our program as a model. And they're implementing that now. It is primarily grant funded, so it doesn't cover 24/7. So I do believe that we need to find more funding so that the mental health co-responder program can have coverage throughout the week. But other than that, I'm just so grateful that we live here because it's way different in other places.
Thank you. One thing we've heard quite a bit from already in the priorities is affordable housing. So the next question, we're going to start with Marsh Holchin. Please share your ideas for specific actions that Broomfield City Council can take to address the need for affordable housing.
You know, as I said in the last question, I'm proud of the direction this council has taken on the issue of affordable housing. It is a crisis everywhere throughout our community, throughout the state. The inclusionary zoning ordinance that they have passed, the independent housing authority that just established this last week. But there are different things that we can improve on. As I mentioned before, I would like to see and explore a local homestead exemption that is open to everybody and that is means tested, so it helps our low-income individuals and people with fixed means specifically to stay in the house that they are in. We need to look at our houses are already truly affordable. For example, we have 2 mobile home parks in Ward 1. And both of those issues are not affordable because they have management agencies that continually raise their rates. They engage in illegal, oftentimes towing practices and things of that nature, make those communities not affordable for those residents. So I'd like to make sure we move forward with all those things and to keep the community affordable. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Hammerschmidt, please share your ideas for specific actions that City Council can take to address for the need for affordable housing.
So I've lived here for 24 years and homes used to be affordable and I don't understand why they're no longer affordable. So my job as a city council person is to work with the coalition, the housing coalition, the developers and the businesses to understand and get to the root of the problem. I think part of this might be due to government overregulation. We need to find out where we can cut back on the regulation. But we maintain the safety of it. I believe that the more government gets in the middle of the deal between the homeowner and the homeowner and the builder, or the landlord and the rental person, the more it's going to cost us. And so I want to explore that as I go forward and to understand the problem more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Candidate Schaaf, can you please share yours?
Thank you. So, from talking with the community these last four years, affordable housing it really comes down to working families being able to afford housing in safe and thriving communities in which they work. 4 years ago, we did a housing needs assessment, which showed a stunning gap in attainable housing for our workforce. This past year, we passed an inclusion housing ordinance, which requires developers of residential units to make cash in lieu payments or include obtainable units in their projects. Just this last week, we created the Independent Housing Authority. With this new authority, and that's independent from the city and county, it decreases the amount of liability that we have but it also affords us the ability to create new affordable housing partnerships, as well as to expand on our housing development fund.
Thank you very much. I had trouble turning my mic on. I just want to let everyone know we will be taking a break at about 6:30, give or take, depending on the questions. So you can stretch your legs. We can gather questions that you have handed out. Don't forget, if you have questions, write them down, hold them up, and they will be collected, and we'll be looking them over during the break. But of course, we've got time for another question or two. So we'll start out with candidate Ward. We haven't heard from you in a while. This is a long one, so I might be repeating it quite often. Also has to do with housing. Local policies, codes, regulations, and fees can add to the overall cost of housing. Meanwhile, development can result in economic and supply side benefits. What role does residential development play in your vision for the future of the city and county? And what do you believe is the appropriate role of city government in guiding or managing growth?
Thank you for the question. Residential is going to play a huge part in our development as a city. One of the things that I'd like to see us do is more mixed use developments where you include both commercial and residential developments, so people can walk and bike to where they need to go instead of having to drive. In addition to addressing the affordability issue, some of our policies such as parking minimums instead of parking maximums drive up the cost because landowners businesses who are building these developments have to buy more land to afford the parking that, quite honestly, a lot of the time we don't even use to full capacity. The job of city council in setting these policies is to ensure that all safety standards are met, or meeting our goal of public health and safety as council members and commissioners, but also to make sure that our businesses.
Thank you. It is a long question. Candidate Hoffman, your turn. I'm going to go ahead and read this the next couple of times because there's so much in it. Local policies, codes, regulations, and fees can add to the overall cost of housing. Meanwhile, development can result in economic and supply side benefits. What role does residential development play in your vision for the future of our city and county? And what do you believe is the appropriate role of city government in guiding or managing growth?
First of all, I want to touch on the last question just a smidge because if I become a council member, I'm going to encourage our mayor to put pressure on our state legislature to fix the construction defect litigation situation, which is a huge part of why Colorado is so affordable. That said, to your specific question here, we have a responsibility to keep a balance of rooftops and business because business helps keep property taxes and fees and all that in check. And so it's really a smart growth, very thoughtful, right mix, right density. How do we incorporate sustainability? And as we have these opportunities to finish the build out and to do the redevelopment, we have a really good opportunity, but we need help from the state in getting that construction defect mess out of the way.
Yes. Thank you. Now we'll ask the same question of candidate Cohen. Would you like me to repeat that mouthful?
If you could.
Sure, happy to. Local policies, codes, regulations, and fees can add to the overall cost of housing. Meanwhile, development can result in economic and supply side benefits. What role does residential development play in your vision for the future of our city and county? And what do you believe is the appropriate role of city government in guiding or managing growth?
Well, I think we have to keep in mind what the cost would be if we didn't regulate growth. The city's role in guiding residential development is an expression of the community's values. And in terms of things, transportation, infrastructure, and open space, etc., we have to keep in mind what would happen if we didn't. And that would lead to even higher costs and problems, as I said, with congestion or incompatible uses, which lead to conflict. So I think that what we want to do, the best path forward, is to be as consistent as possible in outlaying those regulations so developers who come to the city know exactly what is expected and they can adapt to that. We need to maintain our values and build a community as we want it to be so that it meets our standards.
Thank you. Next, we'll have the same question of candidate Hoffenberg. Would you like me to repeat that?
Not necessary. Thank you. Look, it comes down to economics. It's called supply and demand. And unfortunately, we haven't seen enough council leadership that understands this. Red tape and unnecessary regulation continues to delay projects, causing prices to go higher. We're in a period of in pretty high inflation right now. We're going to see inflation close to 6%. That means not only is labor costs going up, but building supplies, so on and so forth. So end product is coming to market way higher than it needs to. As far as bringing affordable housing to market, I think we have to look at cutting the unnecessary regulation, bringing projects to market sooner, and understanding what the trade-offs actually between preserving open space and residential building are. If you have too much open space, you're going to drive prices up on residential homes. If you, maybe make some sort of concession on open space, you could bring more affordable housing forward as well.
Thank you very much. Now we'll ask the same question of our mayoral candidates, and we will start with candidate Broom this time. Would you like me to repeat this?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much. The role of residential is really important in the community because it really is what makes your community, and it also spurs growth. And that's essential to increase our economic vitality. But too much of it, especially with only being 34 square miles, will put us out of balance. So we definitely need to, the role of government, the role of council and mayor is to ensure that we have the appropriate balance to sustain our financial future. So that's got to include affordable housing, executive housing, workforce housing, all under the same roof, and balance our economic future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Candidate Castriata, would you like me to repeat it?
No, I think I got the gist of it by now. But it's a partnership. It is. We do have to have that balance because non-residential, the tax assessment rate is 3 times what the residential is. And that non-residential tax revenue is what covers the cost of services that we provide. We can't do it with the residential alone, but we have to work with our home builders. We have to work with our developers. And that's why I'm proud that I have the endorsement of the Home Builders Association of Metro Denver and the Apartment Association. We need to be flexible on some of our outdated zoning that requires certain setbacks if we want the affordable housing. We need to work together. But we definitely do need to keep in mind the long-range financial plan, which is going to keep us from going under. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, since we're talking about growth and development, we'll go a slightly related one, but we're going to stick with the mayoral candidates. And we will start with candidate Castriata. Do you support tax increment financing in metro districts to jumpstart development in areas where development might not happen?
I do. I've seen it happen where we need to encourage the development because of blighted conditions. We did it with Baseline because of the aging oil and gas infrastructure there in Broomfield, and we're going to be doing it with the Town Square development. It is an appropriate use of that fund to help stimulate development in blighted areas.
Thank you very much. Candidate Groom.
Yes, I too agree and support the metro districts, not only for the blighted areas, but also for the new developments. That's what Broomfield has been established on. Pretty much all of our neighborhoods have a metro district. And that allows the establishment of that neighborhood, like an Anthem Ranch or an Anthem Highlands, to have their development, but the rest of Broomfield is not taxed to support that growth because they're already paying the taxes. So it's good for a number of reasons, and that's what I would support. Broomfield's been established and grown off of the metro districts.
Thank you. Candidate Hammerschmidt. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
You support tax increment financing in metro districts to jumpstart development in areas where development might not happen.
Yeah, the metro districts are very localized. I think it's important that we understand the dynamics and how it affects the rest of Broomfield in order to support those metro districts. Again, the community needs to be involved with such a localized tax district. So I would like to get talk to the people that will be living in that district, understand the dynamics, and help them grow their community.
Thank you very much. Next up will be candidate Mark Holston. Would you like me to repeat?
No, thanks. Yes, I support tax increment financing in development moving forward. You know, I work for IBM, and the office was downtown Denver, and they just gave up one of the floors. Especially the pandemic response, the commercial real estate market is going to be readjusting for a while. We need to make sure that we are helping our commercial real estate and our businesses, especially our small businesses, to reimagine what that looks like and work forward that redevelopment that we might have. So things like the Flatiron redevelopment is something important that we can use tax increment financing for, and also the town square development. And let's remember, when we're talking about increment financing, it's not revenue that the city's giving, it's revenue the city's not getting that wouldn't have been created if it hadn't, the development had gone forward. So yes, I support those, and I think they're very important to help the development, especially in these trying economic times. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll ask the same question. Candidate Coleman.
Yes, and not to be redundant, but yes, I think that these are important tools. With respect to the special districts, the one thing that I have to call out is a lot of the residents in Skystone, which is part of our ward, were unaware that they had a metro district, which really basically doubled their taxes. And so I committed to them that I will pursue having that be a required disclosure, because I don't think it's bad or wrong. I just think it's something people need to be aware of. That's part of the deal.
Thank you. Candidate Ward, would you like me to repeat?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you. Yes, I do support using those tax incentives for our building of housing and commercial commercial developments. Especially as James mentioned earlier, that we go through this pandemic, and commercial real estate is probably going to change with businesses going remote workers, etc. You're going to see an increase in open office space, and that's going to lead to councils having to take some hard look at how they repurpose that land to hopefully address the affordable housing issue, but also you can use it for open space, etc.
Thank you. Now we'll go to one of our candidates on Zoom and ask candidate Kiachen her opinion on tax increment financing in metro districts.
Hi. Yes. So what I have to say about metro districts is they are essential for our developers, and I support that. And if I could just talk for a moment about affordable housing, because I wasn't asked that question a few moments ago. As a member of the Broomfield Housing Committee, I believe that there's an all of the above solution. One thing that I've noticed is that people are complaining about property taxes, yet we all love our high property values. And what I want to do is explore all options moving forward to see what works, whether it be tiny homes, duplexes, higher density, mixed use developments. I definitely see there's a shortage of affordable housing for seniors, veterans, and the disabled. And I want to prioritize that. I've heard firsthand that we have a shortage of accessible rentals for the disabled. And my experience on the Housing Advisory Committee says we need to let the residents decide what works. I'm very excited about baseline going in. But either way, I want to focus on invigorating our economy and supporting our businesses because I think that goes hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And candidate Leslie, you get the last word before we take our 10-minute break.
Well, congratulations, Sam. You have, through your leadership, brought a consensus to the whole group of us here tonight. So yes, I support and agree with everybody else here. Thank you.
That is strange. Especially on something that is so misunderstood sometimes. So we are going to take a 10-minute break right now. Get up, stretch your legs, have a drink of water. We will be back here at 6:40 promptly. If you have any questions, be sure to turn them in to somebody I'll be walking around probably. Thank you. Okay, everyone, if you can sit down, please, we appreciate that. Okay, we're gonna get underway with the rest of the program. There have been some questions come in, and there's been a couple that have been able to be turned into a show of hands, a kind of yes or no. You're ready to be kind of put on the record. The first question comes in. Do you support ranked choice voting? Yes. Or no? Okay. You're all on the camera on there. So your opinion has been registered. The next one is another one that came in, and it could have gone a long question. We could have made 4 questions out of this one, but it looked like a good one to get kind of an idea. Do you support vaccine mandates for public-facing city and county employees and contractors? If it's yes, put your hand up. If it's no, put your hand up now. It's a yes or no if you public-facing CCOB or contractors. You're right, there could have been like 14 different ways to answer that and how the nuances with mask and everything, but it kind of came in that way in one way, so I thought it would be a good way to ask that. So the next question, hopefully I've got things in order if I've asked everybody the right questions. We're going to stick with pandemic themed questions. We're going to start with candidate Schaff. Please share your views on pandemic-related support from the city and county, specifically regarding issues such as evictions and water shutoff. What should Broomfield's role, if any, be in continuing to provide support?
Well, thanks for the question. So I think that, for me, being a city council member and being on council during the pandemic, it was probably one of the toughest times in our community's history. There were a lot of needs that were required of us, of our community. One of those first things was just getting PPE out and ensuring that we had the information out to our small businesses and out to our residents in a timely and effective manner. I think that as we continue to move forward, we definitely are not out of this pandemic. And in fact, there's still a lot of question marks that remain. And so as we continue to go through these next years, there's going to be a major importance that your council leaders up here continue to communicate effectively, that we continue to uphold programs that have really proven themselves, like the Bridge the Gap program, and working with our nonprofits to ensure that people are taken care of.
Thank you very much. Next, candidate Marsh Holsham, please share your views on pandemic-related support from the city and county of Broomfield, specifically regarding issues such as evictions and water shutoff. And what should Broomfield's role be?
I don't believe any of our residents should lose their homes, whether they're renters or homeowners, because of pandemic-related financial struggles. I also don't believe that they should have essential services such as water and electricity, especially in the coming winter months, shut off. Broomfield just received $20 million from the federal government in COVID relief funds, and I believe that we should prioritize using that to ensure that no citizen loses their home or has to face cold or eviction or homelessness during the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, candidate Hammerschmidt.
So as the pandemic rolled out, I was really concerned for the businesses. I can't imagine running a business. I don't have that type of mind. And the businesses that stayed open, like the pizza parlor, it was really important for our community to support those people. I also don't think evictions are a hard thing, because when government mandates no evictions, then how does the person that owns the landlord or whatever, how do they make it? I think we have to really be careful when we roll out these policies that we don't create more problems. Government is really good at creating problems. I work for the federal government, and there's always unforeseen circumstances. So I think we need to really think it through and make sure we understand the problem.
Thank you. Now I'm trying to mix all the questions that came in with some of the ones that came in before and see what rose to the top. So if I don't seem like I'm asking this, and it's very prepared, please forgive me. But we're going to start out with candidate Hoffenberg on the Zoom call. And this one has to do with affordable housing, but it's a little more detailed than that. Are you willing to push for a reduction of this city and county's open space requirement in all future developments that's required, such that the city's park and open space would meet a lower threshold than the 40% that is currently our open lands goal?
Yeah, this is a great question, and one that City Council needs to consider and should have been considering long ago. I do believe that we should be open to having the conversation and understanding the trade-offs of protecting an open space goal of 40% or prioritizing affordable housing. It's a supply and demand issue. The more land you protect, the less land for homes. And so by that very simple supply and demand metric, we know that home prices will go up. So I think we need to start having the conversation. But I actually think we can achieve both by being more direct and more visionary on the front of planning and zoning, putting forth the right ideas in terms of the projects we want to see, lower footprint homes, and including that open space component within maybe some of those types of projects, I think is a way to achieve both.
Thank you. Next, candidate Cohen. Are you willing to push for a reduction in CCOB's open space requirement on developments and reducing the 40% goal of open space?
The short answer is no. It would be very short-sighted of us to give up on conserving land in perpetuity to maintain open space for mental health and for nature and for all the benefits it brings. For what is a short term, we have to admit a short-term housing situation, in that over 1 million people moved into this state in the last 10 years. Broomfield was the fastest growing county of all the counties. So we're in a situation where housing development couldn't keep up with the population growth. And so supply demand, our housing prices have gone up, unfortunately, quite rapidly. However, that doesn't mean we have an excuse to then build on every single inch, because that's forever. And we would lose, I think we would regret that very quickly when the housing market catches up and we're able to build more affordable housing. I think open space is a unique and brilliant quality of Broomfield, something that made a lot of people come here and want to stay here, and we should protect it.
Thank you. Next, we will ask the same question to mayoral candidate, starting with candidate Castriata. Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
On your word, because I don't have it exactly written down. Are you willing to push for a reduction of the city and county's open space requirement in new future developments and lower the stated goal of 40% open lands goal the city has?
I don't think we need to lower our goal. I don't. With the 20% of Broomfield that's left to be developed, there will be a public land dedication. Now, in some of the infill developments, I think we need to be flexible because they won't have the space to dedicate. And the Flatiron redevelopment is a prime example of that. So we need to be flexible on the PLD requirement, but we don't need to reduce our goals. We can build up, we can build denser, we can change our zoning to allow more space, smaller footprints. So I think we can do both. People agreed to pay a 1/4 tax in perpetuity, a sales tax, to acquire this open space. And I think that we owe it to them, since I feel like we all own a part of it, to conserve it and preserve it. Because that is truly what so many people love about Broomfield. And I'm definitely in favor of protecting that.
Candidate Groom, would you like me to repeat it?
No, thank you. No, I would not support lowering our 40% goal. I think it is key to our community. as well as it's a major contribution to our environmental goals. And keeping that goal for attainable housing, there's other ways and means towards obtainable housing. Again, we can push back on the construction deficit, and we can get more products that have a lower footprint and a lower price range to support that. So I would not mess with that. We've got a beautiful town and city and county. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we are going to go to a tried and true favorite in Broomfield. That's going to be a question on oil and gas. And this one is kind of nuanced. And we're going to start with candidate Ward. How has the passage of recent state legislation regarding local control and setbacks changed your mindset or position of oil and gas development and regulations? Now, yes or no question.
I think the passage of the state legislature level to give more local control to local governments, is a great thing. I know oil and gas, many people in here are not in favor of the increased noise and pollution and environmental effects it's having on our community. And I think it is our responsibility to ensure that we are protecting as much of our land as possible and ensuring that any development we have around oil and gas protects the health of our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoops, Mr. Button. Brings us to candidate Hoffman.
Would you mind repeating the question?
Yes. How has the passage of recent state legislation regarding local control and setbacks changed your mindset or position of oil and gas development and regulation?
Great question. I don't believe that it's changed because going back to 2019, I think we could brag that Broomfield really was maybe the world leader in the right kind of regulation and the right level of safety and that balance of the fact that we still need fossil fuels because we're not totally independent of that yet. And at the same time, looking out for the health and safety of the folks in the community. So that doesn't change because the state's done anything. The one thing that I'll go ahead and go on record to say is I would hope that since we are, in my view, in a really great place already, and we're wrestling with a challenge of affordable housing, access to housing, et cetera, that we not go too far beyond where we already are in continuing to try to restrict oil and gas in the city.
Thank you. Candidate Leslie? Dr. Revere.
No, thank you very much. Let me take a kind of an economic position on this. One of the issues is that we don't generate a lot of money from the revenues from oil and gas. It's going to be about $6 million annually, and then it's going to decline over the 20-year or so period that those wells are operational. On the other hand, we are spending about $3 million a year, and those costs are going to continue to increase to manage and to handle all the legal issues, et cetera, of oil and gas. So the net $3 million now, which is going to decline over the next 20 years, up to a point where it may actually cost us more to manage the cat wells at that point, is not really bringing great economic value to Broomfield. So I'm supportive of restricting it. We certainly have commitments to contracts that are already let, but we need to manage, monitor, and protect our employees, protect our neighbors and citizens, and not let any economic perspective carry us the wrong way on that.
Thank you. Candidate Kiachen, would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
My pleasure. How has the passage of recent state legislation regarding local control and setbacks changed your mindset or position of oil and gas development and regulation?
Well, for me right now, we need to focus on monitoring and enforcement. Health and safety is absolutely number one for me. I live in Anthem Highlands. My parents live in Anthem Ranch, and this is a hot topic right now up in Ward 4 due to the possibility of the extraction going in across Highway 7. I know a lot of Anthem Ranch residents are very concerned. And for me, I do not support that. You know, back when Mayor Pat Quinn was in office, he was on the oil and gas task force, and he advocated to get the extraction out of Broomfield into the neighboring counties. They did not let him in, but now across Highway 7, they want us to let them in. And I do not support that. I won't accept it. But I can assure you that whatever does end up happening across Highway 7, I will be a champion for the residents and the health and safety of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last person to get this question will be candidate Shep.
Thanks.
Can you repeat it?
Sure.
Let me turn my microphone back on. How has the passage of recent state legislation regarding local control and setbacks changed your mindset or position of oil and gas development and regulations?
Thanks, Sam. So I remember when that Senate Bill 181 was passed. I was in that in the Capitol building until really late that night testifying in support of that bill. I think that my opinion on oil and gas development is that it does not belong in neighborhoods. It doesn't belong next to schools, and it doesn't belong next to our recreation centers. The CDPHE study that came out showed that there were impacts up to 2,000 feet for residents that experience negative health impacts within 2,000 feet of living within those current operations. Our residents have shown and displayed that here in Broomfield that they are having impacts within that 2,000 feet. We also have our mandate from our citizens that was passed Amendment 301. That is a charter amendment that says we must ensure the health, safety, and welfare and the environment in matters of oil and gas. As your council member, I will continue to do that mandate that has been set to us for our residents. Thanks.
Thank you. Next question, we're going to start out with candidate Coleman. It's one that has come in from a few different places. Since the creation of Broomfield County, there have been many discussions about reorganizing city and county government to include fewer full-time county commissioners rather than the current 10 part-time plus mayor city council members. What is your position on such reorganization and why?
I don't have to be a position on the fly. From my experience from the time I've lived in Broomfield, I don't have any reason at this point in time that we would need to change. I haven't heard from any dissatisfaction with the way the council is set up now. Right now, we have 2 representatives for every ward, so we have fairly local representation. It's not that hard to reach your representative versus in the county commission. Typically, it's 3 full-time people, and you end up working with their staff. So at this time and moment, I don't have a reason to support a change, but I'm certainly open to hear the reasons.
Thank you. Candidate Hoffenberg, since the creation of Broomfield County, there have been many discussions about reorganizing city and county government to include fewer full-time county commissioners rather than the current 10 part-time city council members plus mayor. What is your position on such reorganization and why?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I've heard rumblings of this issue in our community. Look, I support the current structure, and that's it. I believe that we are servant leaders when we want to run and become council members here, and I want to keep politics out of our local municipal policymaking. I think the biggest advantage we have as a city and county and the current structure we have is we should be listening to our constituents. And we should be taking guidance from them, whether they, side with us and have the same understanding of the issues, or if they differ. And I think having all that feedback and being open to listening to that provides the best outcomes for our community.
Thank you. Next, we'll ask the same question, candidate Holman.
Yeah, I will echo what Grayson said. I think that we need to be cautious when we're talking about adding another layer of government and another layer of bureaucracy. My experience with Boulder was having the 3 commissioners. Most folks didn't really know who they were, or what it was they even did. And so it just created a detachment, and, you know, maybe this is an unfair portrayal, but that was what I observed. And I do believe that we, under our current structure, really have our ability to really be aware of what's going on in the community, and that's our job.
Thank you. Candidate Ward, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Since the creation of Broomfield County, yes, there have been many discussions about reorganizing city and county government to include fewer full-time county commissioners rather than the current 10 part-time city council members plus a mayor. What is your position on such reorganization and why?
No, I would not at the moment support any reorganization. Since we are both city and a county, we have far more on our plate than most other normal city councils do, such as Boulder or Westminster or Thornton. And I think by having this increase in people, we are able to better address the issues of our constituents and listen to our constituents and make sure that they are heard. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to try and start closing statements around 7:15. So I'm going to try and squeeze in a couple more questions in here. And I'm in new territory, so I'm trying to make sure I get this right here. We're going to start with candidate Kiachen on this one. And it is, should Broomfield dedicate space in the planned Civic Center for nonprofit organizations? Why or why not?
Absolutely. I support all options. One of my campaign commitments is that I want to address homelessness. And one of my solutions for addressing homelessness is to embrace our community resources and organizations and bring people together to help those in need. And I think that's something that we could use to address the situation with our homeless. I believe that every life matters. Everyone should be able to succeed and live with dignity. And there's one project that I really like that I hope that we can see more of in the community, and that is the Anchor House. I really like that the Habitat for Humanity and the Lutheran Church of Hope came together to provide that for our foster kids that aged out of the system and would not have somewhere to go otherwise. But I'm always a supporter of increasing community services and organizations and resources, because from what I know about Broomfield, living here for 20 years, is that it is a very compassionate and giving community, and we need more of that. I support embracing our community resources and organizations and bringing people together. Thank you.
We're going to have to wave that sign a little harder so she can see it a little better. Next, candidate Hammerschmidt.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes, if I can remember which one it is.
Sorry.
Should Broomfield dedicate space in the planned Civic Center for nonprofit organizations? Why or why not?
Absolutely. I think we should take care of our community. I think it's important that we connect with them on a personal level to understand their needs. They need to be part of that community. I also talked with someone recently who wanted a place to display her artwork. So I thought, you know, that might be a good opportunity for our local artists to come in and just provide another avenue for their local wares.
So I don't know what I have against candidate Leslie, but this is the second time I've skipped you and had to be reminded. I'm glad I got people paying attention. So I apologize to you yet again. But would you like me to repeat the question?
Certainly, and I even had my mic on.
I apologize. I haven't moderated anything in a couple of years, you know, so it's new.
Yeah, I support that. Actually, I want to go back to the previous question, because one of the reasons I'm running is because Anthem Ranch has never had a representative on the city council. And I'd like to be that person. But in all the places I've worked, I've been very impressed of the kind of coordination and collaboration between the city and the county serving as one entity. When I was working in Onondaga County in upstate New York, we had 23 members of the county legislature. And then on top of that, you had a county system with a county court. And I had that in other places that I worked in. So only having really 10 plus the mayor is really a very efficient way to go. Plus, we have more outreach to the citizens that you can't get if you only have 3 or 4 members of the county government. So I think the system works very well, and I've been very impressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, my apologies. Okay, another question that has come through, and it was on the minds of people recently, was the situation with.
You missed James.
I missed James. You know, I was thinking I can't miss candidate Holstrom, and then there I walked right over him again. I apologize. We needed a little comedic humor in here. My apologies, candidate Mark Holstrom. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I got it. Thank you.
I'm glad I got an awake audience. Thank you very much.
Nonprofit space in our new town square development is probably one of those areas where you're going to get a consensus up here. I definitely think that we should do that. You know, I grew up in a low-income household. We were only not homeless, I think, because of the generosity of family and a landlord who never raised the rent. And so I have a special affinity for people who are struggling. I've met with the refuge leaders many times, and they really want Broomfield to step up and to start giving back to what we need. You know, there is no way that private nonprofit agencies can fund all the needs that we have. And so it is important that City and County of Broomfield put resources towards our low-income individuals and families through FISH, through the refuge, through nonprofit space in the town square, and through things like Anchor House. Broomfield was a partner in that development. So I really feel like that's a good way to move forward. And thank you for the question.
Thank you very much. Well, at least candidate Leslie, you know, I wasn't just picking on you intentionally.
Well, I've committed to joining the Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, our final question, we're running out of time, but this is a question that was on people's mind quite a bit earlier this year. We had tents and homeless people camping in one of our parks. So there have been some questions on this, and it's kind of an open-ended question, not whether they should have been there or not, but the question is, and I'm going to start with, and hopefully I don't forget anybody this time. I'm going to go with a mayoral candidate, just so I don't mess it up. Who did I ask first last time? Okay, candidate Groom, you get to be first this time. Candidate Castriata, hopefully I don't forget you. How do you think Broomfield handled the homeless situation that developed in the County Commons Park recently? What should Broomfield have done differently?
And just for clarification, you said Broomfield handled.
Yes, I will repeat that because it is a specific kind of question. So I'll read it the way it came into us. How do you think Broomfield handled the homeless situation that developed in the County Commons Park recently? What should Broomfield have done differently? I mean, even if you thought it was the perfect or the absolute worst, what should they have done differently?
Certainly. So really with the homeless situation in Broomfield, I think staff and our police force has come up with an amazing approach to removing homelessness in Broomfield, or removing the tents. And that is a 4-step process. And within that 4-step process, there was a situation in the Commons Park, and we did show leniency to that individual. I do think the police had it under control. I trust them that they were working with that individual one-on-one. That individual has been removed since then. But there's a level of trust and support we've got to give the people of authority via our police department because they're out there. I wouldn't do much differently associated with that because we're a community where we have very few homelessness, and we can handle them on a case-by-case basis. We just needed to validify and solidify the process for removing tents and caring for homeless.
I appreciate that. Candidate Castriata. You're only
Thank
the
you.
second person. You want me to read this?
No, I got it. Thank you. And it's such a complex question. I do think that our staff and police department have handled it well with asking for voluntary compliance, which we've gotten in all cases except for one. And this woman had untreated mental illness. She thought that she had won the lottery and she was refusing services because she was waiting for her winnings. And that's a tough place to be. And when I found out that 2/3 of our minimum wage workforce are women, I mean, we're coming out of this once in a lifetime pandemic where so many people's lives were upended. And I think Broomfield has handled it compassionately. We have had unhoused people living in cars and basements and church services, but when it finally becomes visible, it's like you have to deal with it. And we're trying to create a long-term sustainable solution, which I'm kind of going off topic now, but to answer your question, I think it was handled well.
Thank you very much. Same question. We'll go to candidate Ward. Would you like me to repeat it?
No, I think we would, thank you. I do like to echo everything that candidate Castriata just said. I think our police and our staff have handled these cases of unhoused people living in the Commons Park rather compassionately and rather well. We've seen a good portion of compliance just by asking and having those hotel vouchers available for people so they can kind of have a small reset. I'm not sure there is anything I can think of at the present time that we should do differently.
Thank you. And while I'd like to ask every single ward the same question, because it has been very important on everybody's mind, we're running out of time. We're past where I should be, so I'm not going to skip candidate Haltman. I skipped other people, and I will give you a chance.
I'm bracing myself. I skipped. It's good club. Okay, to answer that, yeah, city staff, police did a great job. The only thing that occurs to me that maybe we could have done different or should do different in the future is make sure that it's really clear to the citizenry what that looks like, so that people aren't thinking that there's not action being taken. And obviously, we can't get into the details of the specific situation, but just to make sure people know, yeah, we've got a process and it's being dealt with.
Thank you very much. I thank the candidates for all their questions. Now we're going to have closing statements in the exact reverse order that the opening statements were, and this would be a lot easier for me if everybody was here sitting down at the dais. But if I do miss somebody, please don't be shy. Not that you have been. Let me know. So we will start with candidate Coleman. Your 1 minute closing statement.
All right, thank you, Sam, and thank you everybody who's here tonight and participating in the forum. As you all know, Broomfield is celebrating its 20th and 60th anniversary this year, so it's a perfect time to stop and reflect on where we have been, how far we've come, and what lies ahead. Because it's been mentioned, we're close to build out in this community in the next decade or so. The next council will probably have a very profound effect on what Broomfield looks like 20 and 60 years from now. We will find out whether did we create a livable community? Did we create an inclusive community, a sustainable community, and a prosperous community? On the short term, this next council will have to deal with some very hard issues, as has been mentioned, and will require bold action on affordable housing and economic recovery. So I ask you, when you consider your candidates who to vote for, choose candidates who want to move Broomfield forward. The current council has made a lot of changes, a lot of overdue changes, 20 years late for an independent housing authority, things like the inclusive housing ordinance, co-policing, etc. So I urge you, let's keep moving forward. I think Broomfield the envy of our neighbors. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Candidate Hoffenberg, your 1 minute closing statement.
Yes, I just want to thank everybody once again for putting this forum on and those of you in attendance. The differences couldn't be any more stark between my opponent and myself. He wants to keep Broomfield moving forward in progress, changing who we are. Unlike my opponent, I want to preserve what has made Broomfield great. Yes, there are many challenges ahead, and my business experience, as well as my experience working with nonprofits, as well as leaders across our region and within our city, allows me to be the best candidate to make decisions on policy moving forward, not only to preserve what makes Broomfield great, but what will continue to make Broomfield great into the future. So vote for me, Grayson Hoffenberg, Ward 5.
Thank you. Next, we're going to stay with the Zoom. It's time for the closing statement. Candidate Kiachen.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you this evening. As a mother raising children and having retired parents in Broomfield, it is the most important thing to me to make sure we live in a wonderful, safe, thriving community. I am always looking for solutions to problems and will proudly represent Ward 4 if I'm elected. As a mother and small business owner, I know what it's like to have multiple responsibilities and no one to delegate to down a chain of command. If I don't do it, it doesn't get done. I am an action person, a get it done person, and I know what it takes to execute. Ward 4 needs a workhorse, and I am that person for the job. I've juggled running 2 small businesses, raising a family, and volunteering in the community. I have 3 kids and span 2 decades in understanding what a Broomfield family, as well as retired parents in our community. I am committed to being a voice for and engaged with residents. We need a leader who residents have confidence in, shares fiscal responsibility, has the respect of the community, and understands that serving on city council is about working for and serving the people of our community. A leader in the future of our families, and that is me. I want this job. I passionately believe in Broomfield, and I will get it.
Thank you. We're not quite rude enough for new people, especially with that on Zoom. Candidate Leslie, I will not skip you this time.
And I'm looking for the invoice from the Chamber of Commerce coming to my home. I'm retired. I have the time, but even more important, I have Cheryl, who's been my lifelong partner and friend, and she is really the strength behind me. So really, you're electing 2 of us if I'm elected to this position. I am very, very experienced in politically complex organizations, but I'm also a small business owner, so I understand both. I'm running unaffiliated in a nonpartisan race. This is not about Democrat or Republican. This is about neighbor to neighbor. So my invitation is, give me a call. Let's sit down and have a cup of coffee or a glass of beer. Let's figure out how to solve these issues. Let's bring more people into the tent, and let's make Broomfield just the wonderful place we always wanted to be. The vision, again, is that our grandchildren will want to raise their families here, have their careers here, and continue to see Broomfield as a desirable place to be. Thank you very much all for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Candidate Shanna, your closing statement.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you again to the Broomfield Chamber and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. As we think back on the last year and a half of the COVID-19 pandemic with remote learning, school by Zoom, and my favorite, relearning math to teach our kids, let us not forget what we accomplished together. We protected Broomfield when she needed us most. We banded together to wear masks, to social distance, and of course, obsessively wash our hands. We banded together, when it was our turn to get the vaccine, we would soar to over 80% of our community getting a safe and highly effective vaccine. This period of time was hard on all of us, but we made it through it together. There will be more challenges ahead, and we will need creativity and innovation to meet the task. We will need to bring our sense of curiosity and willingness to ask questions. As your council member, I will continue to do my homework. I will continue to show up every day for this community. I'm Devin Schaff, and I look forward to serving you for another 4 years.
Thank you. Candidate Coleman, your closing statement.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, let me say thanks to all of you and thanks to all the folks in Ward 2 for the vote for Broomfield. And closing, it's edifying when I'm at the door and people say, you know what, Broomfield's great. I really don't have any issues. But change is inevitable, and change can result either in chaos or in prosperity. And our job as the elected officials is to listen to the folks in Broomfield And then to seek the things that really look like quality of life in a thriving community for the people who live here and put us in this job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Candidate award.
Thank you for everyone being here. Thank you to the Broomfield Chamber of Commerce and League of Women Voters for hosting this event. You know, being in Broomfield, I have a very unique perspective. And as someone who's 25 years old, a lot of the issues we talked about earlier this evening, I will have to deal with for much longer periods of time than some other people at this table. So vote for me, and we will address the issues such as affordable housing, transportation issues, sustainability, so that way we have my generation has a future to look forward to, and future generations have a future to look forward to.
She was looking at me. Thank you very much. Candidate Hammerschmidt.
I just want to say I still feel 25. My top priority is to represent you as a taxpayer in Broomfield. I want to keep Broomfield government small so that they can focus on providing essential services. I promise to work through and make decisions with the taxpayer in mind, with you in mind. You deserve to keep the money you've earned while still supporting our infrastructure and housing. That's very important. You know what is best for your family, and I don't want to change who you are. I just want to make sure you have the best Broomfield possible. I trust you, the taxpayer, to manage your own affairs. The more money, let's see, well, I'll just close up. I do support you, and I keep you in mind every time I do make a decision here in Broomfield.
Thank you. Candidate Marsh Fulton.
Thank you. I'm James Marsh Fulton, and this comes back down to, I think, the very first question was about leadership. And that's what I want to bring to the table. You know, I have life experiences that give you a unique perspective on what the members of our community need. I'm running to build a community that is truly sustainable and inclusive for everybody. During the recent unhoused conversation, I was saddened that the social media posts on Nextdoor and Facebook often dehumanized some of those individuals. And I want to work to bring a community that doesn't happen. I believe in working with everybody, whether you agree with me or not. I want to sit down with people and find out where you're coming from and talk to you and really understand where you're coming from. And then we'll work to find common ground on any issue that comes before us. My life experiences, my career in financial compliance and the law, and my service on the 2 different boards and commissions in Broomfield makes vote for James Marsh Fulton as the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but certainly not least, our mayoral candidates. First, candidate Castriata.
Thank you, and thank you so much for being here to listen to us tonight. Serving the residents of Broomfield these past 4 years on council has been the greatest privilege of my life. I've always been an advocate when I was a journalist and now as mayor. I view this role as neighbors helping neighbors. It's not about partisanship. You don't ask somebody a question when they need help. It doesn't matter. I am so proud of what we've been able to do with our enhanced communication and transparency throughout the pandemic and beyond. We continue to prioritize health and safety, focus on a more inclusive, equitable community, and establish a solidified vision and policy for the growth and development for years to come. I believe that Broomfield is going to be one of the great American success stories of the 21st century. We can be open to the world and not lose who we are. We can guarantee freedom and equality and dignity for everyone in our community. As President Harry S. Truman once said, America was not built on fear, it was built on courage and imagination. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And through the magic of reverse order, the first shall be last. Candidate Groom.
Certainly. Thank you, and thank you everybody for showing up and attending tonight. We need a strong leader in Broomfield, and I have the experience, the education, and the seasoned leadership skills to be that leader. We need a mayor and council representatives that understand the difference between policy and operations, not the micromanaging that's occurring today. In the next 2 years, my goal is to allow staff to focus on our current priorities, ensure our financial stability of our community, and build the solidarity of our affordable housing programs. I will be the leader that Broomfield deserves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our question and answers of our candidate. I hope you enjoyed it. On behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank our audience both online and in person. I really appreciate you being here. Also, the City and County of Broomfield for letting us have this room, with special thanks to the audio and video expertise that they have given us. Thank you very much. And most of all, I want to thank the candidates for taking the time to come here without knowing what questions they were going to be asked, to put themselves out there so that the residents of Broomfield can make the best informed choice possible. So thank you all very, very much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.